Welcome back on the Coalition 936 podcast. This is episode 16. Can you believe it? I can because I produced them all and they have been great episodes. And today is no exception. We have Suzy Childers from Security and Guaranty Abstract coming up here in just a moment. She is a proud member of our board. Wanted to get to two great sponsors that we have this week. CHI St. Luke's Health Memorial. They are platinum sponsors with us here on the Coalition and great supporters for our nonprofit work, and they make our community healthier, especially in the area of tobacco use. Thanks to Dr. Sid Roberts and Tina Alexander Sellers for their longtime support, as well as another board member of ours, Brianna Murphy, and thanks to the Betty and Murphy George Foundation. They are gold sponsors, longtime sponsors of the Coalition. Well, we have these episodes from time to time, and it overlaps with Recovery Month. Today, we're going to spotlight a member of our board, Suzy Childers, the Director of Marketing at Security and Guaranty Abstract Title Company in Lufkin. Side plug, I just used them. God called us to move out of the great city of Lufkin, but thumbs up to y'all first off. I wanted to get that free plug out there. Y'all do great work, and let us take a deep breath. But first off, how are you doing?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that plug. I'm doing great. Doing great.
Yeah, thanks for coming on because, I mean, we got a lot we want to get to, a lot of things that are on the personal side of things, but you're willing to share with us, but just your reasons when we ask our board members when they come on, what were the reasons you wanted to be a part of the board? Because I know Sharon and everybody, all of us are glad to have you.
Yeah, I'm glad to be on the board. Most first and foremost, just to be a parent. And I'm just a lifelong advocate of being drug free. And wanting my children to be and everybody around us. So I'm a concerned parent with hoping everybody else will stay drug free, just like I try to.
So in my prep for this, Sharon was sending me a video, and I learned that you are quite the artist. Tell me about
Yeah.
your side projects there, and you
Yeah. So, gosh, 15 years ago, I started with, I just always drew this one, I just drew this girl. And so I started with that and then decided to start a stationery and invitation business. That turned into like, maybe I can paint. And so, probably about 10 years ago, I started painting my Susie Lou girl. And then that turned into all kinds of things, like just painting other things. And I've added pottery to it. So that's that. I have a little pottery studio at the very thing. There's my plug.
yeah.
So yeah,
So,
so it's fun. It's a good outlet.
so you stay very busy most of
Yes,
the time,
I
right?
do stay busy. I do stay busy, and it's funny. It's not like I had a boring job or anything before that because I've always loved all my jobs. And but the reason I started it really was it was kind of my recovery from the death of my mom. So my mom passed away in 2005, and I started the business a year later to the date, just as kind of a way to honor her and I guess keep myself busy.
What type of connections have you unearthed in that? Because I imagine with I mean, there's a reason you have that passion for it. Obviously, have you noticed some other things about yourself that you didn't quite know yet? Because I know
Oh
as we get
gosh.
older, it seems like I've noticed some things, and just you just fall and you notice so much other stuff about yourself. Has that been the case for you?
Oh gosh, I've lost I can't even there's no distinction between my friends and my customers and my people that like, oh, did I only meet them through the paint parties or through different things? So I've connected with kids. I mean, I have all the time I have kids that say that, they have been to one of my paint parties. I've even had a couple of people who went to art school, I mean, discovered they could paint. And so it's just crazy insane because I don't profess to be the greatest artist in the world, but I just have fun doing it and connecting with people. So,
So Recovery Month is September, winding down. As we record this, I just got this in under the wire. Probably
oh,
to be fair to everybody, I should have recorded it a week or so earlier. But as we record this, it's September, and as most people associated with the coalition, we have recovery in our past, and you've been open telling stories about your family. So I'll give it to you, and you take it as you will, because you have a great story to share, and also about the hope on the other side of recovery.
Right, right. Well, so our older son, gosh, like I kind of calculated up the date, and it's really been about 13 years ago, where it's hard to explain it, but basically, when he was in 10th grade, we had a call from Lufkin High School nurse that said, um, your son is thrown up in English class. And, I'm like, oh no, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. Sorry. And they said, we think he's taken something, he's disoriented, and I'm like, oh no, he would never do that. He's probably just sick. So we pick him up, and he definitely was disoriented to say the least. So he had bought from a student in his class 20 cough and cold medicine pills, Coricidin. And we were like, what on earth? Why would you do that? And so someone convinced him it was a great way to get high and to, get over it by 4 p.m. By the time he got home, nobody would know. And so we were horrified. We took him to our pediatrician, and then we took him to the hospital and had him drink charcoal or do whatever kind of torture they could do to him to make him never want to do it again.
Mhm.
And so that's when we first knew there was a problem. Um, we thought that it was just kind of a one time thing, but it turns out, I mean, he had a plan from like, there's some kind of, he and his buddy were going to get high on the first day of ninth grade. I mean, and this was just beyond anything we ever could imagine for him. So we struggled and struggled all through high school. Thank goodness Lufkin High School was wonderful to us and helped us in so many ways. You hear you hear sometimes all the bad stories, but we have the best story to tell about Lufkin High School and their support. Um, so it just went on, and it got worse and worse. And I think he really, I mean, looking back, we've talked that he struggled with being sober and wanting to not do, the things he wasn't supposed to do. So, our home was a battlefield of anger and screaming. And we thought it was kind of like, we thought the best method was just to switch things up all the time and be crazy, mad, and angry and yell and fight and scream. And then we would be forgiving. And I mean, it was just a horrible, awful home life for 3 or 4 years there while he was struggling with this. So there's hope.
Mhm.
So finally, we decided, oh my gosh, we need counseling. Like, we've got to go to counseling and figure out, get him in there. So we went the first day and I met with the counselor. He refused to talk. And so, but I stayed. I mean, I was like, my gosh, we're paying for this. So let me just stay and um, get some counseling. I mean, that I didn't know I needed. And so ended up, my counselor was great, and we took care of some things I needed to take care of, and then figured out what we could do with our son. And it turned out that he needed to go to rehab, is what we decided. So we picked a rehab place. We worked with Lufkin High School to make sure that he had enough credits to graduate. And we sent him to a place called Sundown Ranch, and it's in Canton, Texas. And I just checked today, and they're still open and doing business. And it was a great resource for us to be able to, I mean, use them. I mean, after the first, like, we dropped him off as a total surprise. That's a whole nother story. But when we came back the next week, they had family weekend every weekend. So we came for every weekend, and he gave us a huge hug. And I mean, we knew kind of we had sent him to the right place. So we learned a ton of things at the rehab. I mean, every Saturday we watched slide presentations. And one of the things that I'll never forget is they talked about underage drinking and how it, people who drink before the age of 21, because I've never understood what that magic number was. But before the age of 21, if you drink in excess, you have a greater likelihood of becoming an alcoholic.
Mhm.
And so that was one of the things that stuck out with me. But we learned so many things like that. We met so many people. The stories were way worse for almost everybody that was there. And there's a little hope in that for people. I mean, I don't know why, but that was sort of a blessing to not have the worst case scenario. The things that we heard were just horrific. So, one of the other things we learned was that really wasn't a good idea for him to come back home. And I mean, this is a at the time he was 18 years old, and we were thinking he should go to college right away, but he shouldn't. We decided that wasn't in his cards for the moment. So we learned about sober living houses, and so some people call them halfway houses. I like to call them sober living houses. And so we visited a couple and then settled on one. We sent our child 500 miles away, and it was the best thing we could have done. I mean, it was truly just tough love, and AA every day. Had to get a job. Couldn't We couldn't pay for it. He paid for it himself through his work.
Wow.
He lived in a house with a bunch of grown men, and it was tough. But he spent a year there, and it was the best thing he could have done. He met a mentor who we never would have dreamed would be someone who would be his mentor. And that man, I mean, oh goodness, he's part of our family now. Um, is that about what else? Oh, I need to go on because
Sure.
while he was in his sober living, I also learned about Al Anon. And I didn't know anything about, I mean, I was like, just never imagined that I would need it. I didn't know it was not for just alcohol. But I went just to rule it out. I truly thought I would start my own recovery group, which is such a joke now, but I went to rule it out because I thought, well, who are these people?
Mhm.
Oh my goodness, those people saved me too. I mean, my older son got saved in his own way, but Al-Anon was so helpful to me, and I can't stress it enough. If anybody's going through recovery of any kind, if you're a loved one, you should go to Al-Anon. They have the most wonderful people there. Every single meeting was just helped me learn so much more about how to how to have a relationship with my child.
Mhm. So, a lot to talk about. You're a wonderful coach already.
I
You can
didn't
tell.
stop talking.
No, I like that. Looking back, hindsight is always 2020. But were there signs that you probably beat yourself up about, but again, not necessarily because you couldn't control that in the whole step
Yeah.
recovery process that I've learned. Um, but were there signs that led up to it that maybe you could help other parents with if there are some signs that
Yeah.
differentiate between normal teenage behavior?
Oh gosh, I wish I could. I mean, because we were truly involved with him, and I mean, tried to be the best parents we could be. But I mean, we found out he was smoking marijuana in our backyard at 5 o'clock in the morning. So he took this very seriously. And I mean, we just didn't know. I mean, we might have been a little what's the word? Sheltered. We just never dealt with anything like that, but we really didn't we really didn't have any signs. I hope nobody listening to this is going to say, "Yeah, you did." But so we were possibly a little sheltered about the whole thing.
What did you learn about yourself going through that recovery side from your side of it with the Al-Anon that could give hope to other families? Because, like I said in my intro, all families have some sort of addiction in them. So, what did you
Yeah,
learn in that process about yourself, kind of linked with that Al-Anon that could help you in this? I don't know, coping is the right term, but the whole process of seeing it to the
yeah.
other side.
Well, I guess the biggest thing I learned is to kind of separate him from the addiction and to just love him. And I mean, it was such a hard, tough time for us, and possibly the worst thing I'll ever go through with him. And I think just what is it? Detachment. That's what it's called. That's what it's called. So detachment. I mean, it's so important to be able to take them away, separate them and their problem, and just show empathy. Empathy was not in our cards at all for this. And when I started learning about his struggle, then I really could feel some empathy for him, and treat him with dignity. But because I mean, we legitimately went through every different type of parenting and just switching it up, thinking that was the key. So it was terrible, awful. I mean, we had some bad times. So I think
So,
detachment.
is the key is that there is no one way to handle each case? I mean, No,
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, don't do what I did for sure, but yeah, no, there's no. You're right. There's no one way to handle it. I mean, it just depends on your kid and the circumstances. I mean, I'm glad we handled it. I mean, at all. I mean, I know I've known some people who just kind of try to ignore it and hope it goes away, and I don't think it's something that would have gone away on its own.
so the coalition is big on prevention, as you know, being on the board, you know a lot of this, of course, but
Yes.
how important is prevention in the broader sense of the community? And I'm sure that really came into focus going through it and then looking back with what he went through.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's so important. I mean, I just wish we had even more money to spend on prevention. It's just the first time you try it, you don't realize how what an effect it can have on you. And this knowing the struggle that he went through as a kid to try to get, I mean, there's too many things going on when you're a teenager. To try that is to just risk, it's like you're putting at risk all of your family history and everything put together. You don't want to become an addict by the time you're in 10th grade. So I felt so strongly the whole time that it takes away your God-given potential. I mean, there's so many things that can happen, that are just terrible, tragic, and I mean, he didn't have to go through all this to, I mean, it may have made him a better person in the end, but, it's just not, it wasn't necessary. It was a horrible time for all of us. So,
And finally, what would your advice be? People that might be going through it, and hope is one of those key words that you've mentioned a couple of times. What is that hope on the other side of it for people that maybe they're at the very beginning, just noticing something with a relative? Doesn't have to be a son or
right.
daughter, but what would your advice to them and to give them hope to get through that other side?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely always hope. I mean, and my goodness, our son did wonderful. I mean, went through the process that he went through. He did have still had some hard times, still struggled, and went to, what is it? 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. I mean, he did that many, many times, and so there is hope. You know, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but there's hope for you as a parent, as a relative. There's definitely hope for the person that's struggling. There's always hope. I mean, I know people who've been in this for a very, very long time, and something good comes from it. So there is always hope. Yeah.
A perfect way to end it. Amen to that. Susie, thank you so
Okay.
much. Appreciate what you do. And
Okay.
another good plug to Security and Guarantee Abstract. You need to get that home moved. I can testify. Y'all do a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
But thanks
All
for
right.
what you do, and thanks for coming on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That wraps up another edition of the Coalition 936 podcast. Remember, you can go to project-quit.org for help Bonnie doing those classes with quitting smoking. And stay tuned. Next month, we'll have another edition here of the Coalition 936 podcast.